Climate change is at the very top of the global agenda right now. In a recent regional climate survey conducted by my institute, when asked which country has demonstrated global climate leadership, over 30% say they see the EU playing that role. Now, while the discussion on climate change has taken decades to mature in the EU, this conversation is only just starting in Southeast Asia. Climate change poses an existential threat to us here, where unlike Europe, majority of our people reside in archipelagic countries that face the threat of sea level rise and problems of forced migration and displacement. So these threats can potentially change not only the physical boundaries and geographies of the countries, but also the social fabric and the social contract between people and government. Now, prior to the pandemic, the EU had already in place a roadmap to achieve net zero status. After the pandemic, it became even clearer to the EU that managing a just transition, one that would not leave anyone behind, was going to be as important. But this discourse linking climate change to a green recovery is still very new in our region. There is therefore a lot for the EU to do, which is to help level up ASEAN countries to that conversation. The EU will be on track to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. I'm very sure of that. But achieving this for itself will not be sufficient. And I think the decision makers recognize this need to get other regions, other states to work together. So circling back to the leadership question, I think this is where the EU's value lies, tapping on its convening powers to get other regional organizations, including ASEAN, the African Union, the Latin American organizations to cooperate is very important. One of the developments that Southeast Asian countries are watching keenly is the negotiations related to Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. While the Katowice COP had concluded most of the Paris rulebook that set out implementation guidelines for the agreement, Article 6 was particularly difficult and was delayed, not least due to the pandemic disruptions last year. A number of Southeast Asian countries have mentioned in their intended NDCs that they are keen to utilize some form of carbon trading mechanism to help them achieve their mitigation targets. So it's critical that Article 6 details give us a workable mechanism that will help countries in the region. It must also stand up to scrutiny and maintain environmental and climate integrity, and must certainly not be one that will greenwash the NDCs. It will be a shame if the eventual result is a mechanism that fails us all. If we keep to the same trajectory of not curbing emissions by 2040, projections tell us that we will be warmed by about 2 degrees. And this has huge implications for countries in the Indo-Pacific, with the most serious impacts on the least developing and developing countries. Now, Southeast Asia is in a precarious position as the fulcrum of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. And the recent IPCC AR6 report predicts that compound impacts of climate change, land subsidence, and human activities will lead to higher levels of flooding and prolonged inundation in the Mekong Delta, which is the rice bowl of Southeast Asia, and where 1/3 of Southeast Asia's population lives. So some of these impacts are immediate humanitarian crises that's just waiting to happen. The others could be slow boil impacts that would take years, but eventually we will come to that point if we do nothing about it.